Hey, fellow authors. It's Carissa here from Author Revolution. Now, this August, we're really excited to introduce our new quantum manifestation mind magic meditations and hypnoses designed to help you align with your highest potential. Inside Your Future Self, which is Tammy and my monthly meditation and hypnosis membership for authors, you'll get access to these powerful programs along with our other themes like Money Muse, The Healthy Author, and New Beginnings. With 10 programs to keep you on track, there's something for every aspect of your writing journey. Join now and enjoy your first week absolutely free. Visit authorrevolution.org/YFS to get started. Transform your writing and your life with quantum manifestation mind magic this August. Don't miss out. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Hey there, revolutionaries. Welcome to a very special episode of the Author Revolution podcast, our 250th episode. Can you believe it? Not only have we hit this incredible milestone, but we've also crossed 250,000 downloads. Holy cow. I am beyond grateful for each and every one of you for tuning in, whether you've been with me since the beginning or if you're just joining the revolution. I am just so excited, so glad that you're here. And now we've got an exciting episode lined up for you today. I'm chatting with the amazing Stephanie Fee, founder and developmental narrative artist at the Wild Larynx. Stephanie's work is about helping authors stand out and share their wildly authentic stories. We dive deep into authenticity of voice and how to heal through writing. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Let's get to it. Well, hi, Stephanie. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm really excited for our conversation today. It's going to be a fun one. But before we get started, could you kick things off by telling my audience a little bit about yourself, about what you do, and kind of give them a little bit of a taste of what's to come here?
Sure. Well, I retitled myself as a developmental narrative artist. That is a combination of ghostwriting, co-writing, and writing coaching, if you will. So I fell upon sort of my own unique blend of modalities that I felt that I could offer people and kind of lean into their strengths so that they could write books and create stories while not feeling like they have to do the things that are holding them back in some way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
combination of things, but really helping people develop their narrative in nonfiction books, so memoirs, business books, and personal development, sometimes a blend of those things, and bringing them to life in a super true, genuine, raw way.
That's so cool. How did you get into this? Like, what was your first starting point about, like, obviously you had to come to a conclusion of this is what I want to be called. This is how I want to blend these things together. But like, what brought you to this point?
Yeah, first I was a reader. My grandmother, when I was a small child, said, read, read, read. The more you read, the better you'll be able to write. And if you can write, you can accomplish anything in life. Of
I
course, as
love
a
that.
kid, you are like, is this true? But I did. I was an avid reader. My mother read to us as little babies. So reading was always a part of my existence. The library was such a place that I loved to go as a kid, still is. And then that turned into actually realizing that she was right. So certain things in life that we ignore, that writing can help us through. I had to finance my own college and get myself through school and finance everything myself and work pretty hard, odd jobs and things like that to get through. And I had found myself a couple credits short of graduating college, and there was no money for me. There was no one who could help me. And
Okay.
so I wrote a compelling letter to the dean of the school, and he wrote me back and let me graduate a few credits short. And
Wow.
I realized that my grandma was right. If you know how to create compelling narratives and engage people, then so much more becomes possible in your life. So it was really instilled in me at a young age. I dreamt of becoming a writer, but I dropped that dream on the floor when the world comes in and sort of says, like, that's not practical. You can't, live a good life in that way. You'll be suffering. So I dropped that
Hmm.
dream on the floor and I didn't pick it up until just a few years ago. I was working on a startup that I had founded in the health and wellness sector, which was a massive pivot, complete and utter life change from what I had been doing. And I realized that if I didn't engage with things outside of that business, that I would become unhealthy and be so attached that if that thing didn't work out, maybe I would feel like that thing not working out was a statement about me being worthless.
Right.
And I thought, what do I like to do? What do I love to do? Well, I love to write. So I just started writing more regularly, sharing it very openly. I'm not a person who goes in like a perfectionist mindset or who won't share something that's rough. It doesn't bother me. I don't know
Right.
why that's the case, but it's true. And so I just started, doing that. And a woman came to me who I had met her 4 years before or 3 years before in a totally different context at a hotel in New York. And she had told me her life story in that moment. And we became connected through the pandemic while she told me she was writing a book out of pure love and interest and passion and love for her story. I was like, I can't wait to read your book. So she sent me the manuscript, which is something that ghostwriters do, by the way, that a lot of people don't understand is sometimes we actually receive a full manuscript. And then our job is to come in and really help develop that and say, get the author to maybe reveal certain things or position the story differently so that it really is more effective or authentic or what have you. So she came to me
Sure.
with this manuscript and she asked me for feedback. I knew that the value of honest feedback, I knew that that was really important because of my past work history. And, people say, oh, it's great. There's no fervor, there's no friction, there's nothing to get better. So I wrote her just constructively feedback. And then she wrote me back and said, I don't know how to do that. And I said, oh, do you want me to help? And it was all just never in my life would I thought I would get paid for this. Right.
Right.
And then she asked me how much that would cost. And I said, nothing. I'm just doing this because I care about you. I love your story and this is fun for me. And then she came back to me again and said, what would it cost to hire you as my ghostwriter? And I
Wow.
literally like went to Google and I was like,
Wait a
and I
minute. What is this?
some things about ghostwriting, but not honestly, not that much. So I just Googled it and then I was like, okay, I have a belief in myself that I'll go all in. So I wasn't shy about asking for compensation that was in line with what a ghostwriter makes because I was like, I'll figure it out. I know, and maybe I'll add something different because I really have no idea at the end of the day
Right.
what I'm doing. So yeah, so it was really cool because I went in with a sense of like complete naivete, which I think for me is really important at the onset of something so that I can like listen to my own intuition. And I just asked myself, like, if I were going to hire someone, I were going to pay them this kind of money, what would I want to have happen? How would I want to be treated? How would I want this process to go? And of course, talk to her about that. But and then I went from there, and it was so healing for her. She processed deeper her stories than she would have on her own. And I think that's another thing. Doesn't have to be a ghostwriter, but what I call a narrative partner will help you go to a level that is very hard to do on your own if you don't have
Right.
the right person to say, hey, let's talk about this thing, your deepest, darkest secrets, and then they don't always have to go into the book. Let's just get them out so you can process that. And I call that like from stored to story, like storing all of these things in our system that we really want to say, we really want to get out there, but we're so freaking scared. And so this process has been sort of this really interesting culmination of all these random experiences that I didn't know why, health, wine. I mean, wine has nothing to do with storytelling in some way, but a lot of
Unless
like
you
the
really need
wine
some
and
in order to tell the story.
right. And a lot of like, a lot of that world, I worked in that industry was very much storytelling because I worked with fine wines, with beautiful vineyards in Italy and family stories and history and all of that stuff. So yeah. So then after that, I someone said, well, you're a writer then, because you just got paid for a job. And I was like, no, no, not yet. Like, no, 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 no. That's not, I don't deserve that yet. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to say this out in the world. And it
Right.
felt really good and really natural. And it felt more natural than anything I've ever done in my life. And then just randomly another book came. And then everything stalled. And I was like, I want to do more of this. So I guess I have to actually go open up myself to find it. And yeah, and then I worked really, really hard to get a portfolio and get experience. And I did lower my fee at a certain point so that I could get that experience. And man, I learned so much disappointments, hardship, and came out of it. Yeah, here today. So,
So
you know,
interesting
deep
to me because,
history. Sorry, it wasn't that, but
yeah, it sounds so interesting to me because to me, it sounds like you are like a narrative healer instead of just like someone who does like the narrative artistry because not many people have the innate, there are obviously like different archetypes or different like the enneagrams or whatever where they have those strengths to be able to pull certain aspects out of people, and not many people have that kind of level of empathy to be able to help people dig into those darker areas, or even just the areas that are like stored emotion, even if they're not necessarily dark. That's a real gift. I mean, being able to do that and being able to pull that out and help them not only like I love that stored to story part of it, but like be able to process through it. And I would think that on a certain level, you're kind of doing it along with them in your own way, right? Like you're feeling your
yeah,
own things being released. That's
for
super
sure.
cool.
I mean, vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
Right.
So, and I'm like open book. I've always actually wanted, not anymore, but to be a more protected person, to be like, oh, I wish I didn't tell everyone how I feel.
Right.
I wish I didn't cry, whether I'm happy, sad, whatever, moved in public. I wish that,
I can so
because
relate to that.
yeah, it was like for so long it would be like you're emotional, and stuff. And then now I'm like, yeah, I'm emotional. Yes,
Yep.
that's great. And that's what makes the work that I do so powerful. And I really healed myself in many ways through narrative art. So when I was in the wine industry at a certain point, I had my body was really plagued with it. I still don't know what, but I had put on weight. I had felt a lot of fatigue. I was drained from the consumption in that industry. And I decided that I needed to figure out what was at the root of my problem. And I discovered that it was the stories that I was telling myself, whether it was from my
Mm,
childhood, abuse, trauma, certain things that had happened that had then resonated into like self-worth and,
right.
what I was like sort of reaching for every day, right? And I was like reaching to prove something, and that wasn't healthy for me anymore. So I did a lot of like self discovery through just exploring like so many different modalities, both like Western and a client of mine says logical and illogical, which I really love.
I love that.
And
I get a
so
lot of
they,
like woo and then scientific. So I'm very
yes,
both. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I think science is almost like woo, right? Because
Yeah.
it's fascinating and I believe it should be taken so seriously. And then I also believe that existential, meaning and purpose and why are we here and spiritual existence should be taken seriously as well. So anyway,
Absolutely.
there were certain things like, Viktor Frankl's logotherapy and, internal family systems and different things like that, that then I started writing and I started talking to myself differently. And that's
So
when
good.
I began narrative artistry, but I didn't know that until now, or,
Yeah.
later when I started realizing that. So I am not a healer. I am as a person who has done the work myself and can be there to facilitate the process of people finding their own route
Right.
forward through actually using their voice for good and for their own empowerment and replacing the things that hold you back, the language that holds you back with language that moves you forward.
Right. That
um
is so good.
yeah.
We talk a lot about that in on this podcast actually, where we talk about like the stories we're telling ourselves because in the indie author industry, who is typically my audience, there's a
Yeah.
lot of that, like you did, where you dropped this idea of wanting to be an author because it wasn't practical, it wasn't going to earn you money, it wasn't going to whatever. So this lack and poverty mentality is very pertinent and permeates like this whole industry. And so it's been kind of my journey as someone who I guess has to speak up against that, my little rebel self, to be able to like, no, we can tell different stories. And as we tell different stories, we take different actions. And then when we take different actions, we see a different result. And it's just interesting to me, like as we do heal ourselves, like we can help and guide the way to heal others, right? We can be that shining example that just lets them know that it's possible to take on new things or to be vulnerable when maybe they've been closed off or like there's so many ways that that can come about. It's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
privilege for sure. Mm.
For sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so that all ties back to this idea of authenticity, right? And I know that that's a very big thing for you. So what does being authentic mean to you in the context of writing, and how has it really influenced your professional work? I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I'm just curious to know what your concept is there.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the core it's the truth, right? And so, and in authorship, I mean, my belief is that, or my way, or my opinion, or my the way that I work with others is that we deep dive into your truth when you want in certain realms, right? And then um there's the truth, and then there's like boundaries. And if you don't want to share your story on every facet, because you don't have to be authentic. What you need to do is share it, whatever you're sharing in its entirety, in my opinion, needs to be from the truest part of yourself. And, all of our truths maybe not true to someone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's really an inner job, and falling asleep every night before bed and saying like, I'm right with myself, I'm right with the story I'm telling. I feel good about, this is what I experienced and this was my truth. And on the level that you want to share, of course, the deeper you share, the more engaged people will be, because everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has things that are hidden and that they're afraid to talk about. I was just
Mm,
talking to someone yesterday about, the shame of his that he has as a parent, because his child was, sexually traumatized outside of their care when he was young, and how that shame feeling can even be, something really hard to share with just like anybody,
Mm.
because the worry of judgment and things like that. But in my experience, what happens is when we're authentic, it's uncomfortable until it's
Yep.
not.
Yeah.
And then the rewards start to come and you're like, oh, who's coming with me? Oh, the most amazing people. Everything starts to fall in line with your life as what your purpose and what you're after and what you want your life to be. The actions line up. And that's kind of something I work on every day. And you have to just find the kinks of where you need an adjustment, and
Yeah.
do the adjustment and keep going. And sometimes I'm like, that wasn't authentic at all of me. Okay, well, I need an adjustment. I'm not perfect. And it's takes a level of self-awareness to
Right.
understand what the truth is for you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
a simple thing like saying, no problem, it's okay. Especially you're from Minnesota, and so am
Right.
I. This sort of Minnesota nice aspect of which is just people saying like, don't worry about it. And then people walk away and they're like, did you say that? They're actually not okay with it. So
Right.
it's like authenticity in that way would be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be politely honest and not be like, oh, it's okay, and just say, thanks for the apology and move on or something like that. So it's
Right.
not like,
Yeah, that is really
um,
hard. It's ingrained in Minnesotans to be like,
yeah,
if you don't have something nice to say, just don't say
don't
anything at all.
say
And
it.
that's
Except for
uncomfortable for
behind
most of
people's
us.
back.
Yeah.
And it's not because people are mean, it's because they're uncomfortable with the truth. And
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
a very common thing for so many people. But yeah, for
Yeah.
us
Or
in
uncomfortable with confrontation too, because sometimes it will lead to a confrontation. If you're like,
yes,
really, that's how you're gonna do it? Like,
yes,
really? Yeah.
yes. And I think in authenticity, when you have confrontation, I'll feel like a friction inside, like an anxious, because confrontation's never going to be fun for me.
Yeah.
But I believe in healthfully confronting things. And once I kind of like breathe through that and come from a place of like love, honestly, and understanding, even if I'm not happy about something, the communication I put forward is like so effective. And there's this new understanding. And if there's not, I'm okay with myself. And again, go to the pillow at night and you're like, did I do a good job with what I had today? Yes. When we're not authentic, I think that's when the dialogue gets nasty or
Yeah, because
ineffective.
eventually it'll blow up. Like you kind of like hold on to that resentment or something for a while, and then eventually it'll still come out. It just won't be as constructive as it could have been.
Yes. And we all have
Yeah.
those moments, but it's sort of like, can we have hardly any? I mean, that's my goal, is to have like none, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I do, you just got to course correct and
Right.
keep getting better.
How do you work with your authors then to be able to help them, like, because it almost sounds like in some ways, so I have a friend, her name's Tammy Tyree. She's a board certified clinical hypnotherapist. And in some of our programs, we have hypnotherapy to help authors dig into some of that subconscious programming, to release it, to rewrite it, to whatever. And sometimes they don't even realize that there are these deeper things that are going on. So how do you
Mhm.
help those authors when you're trying to get to that real meat of the story, the real authentic part of the story that they haven't quite maybe even realized is there? How do you help them to bring that out? Authors, are you tired of feeling like you're on a never-ending hamster wheel, working hard but never really moving forward? It's time to break that cycle for good. I'm thrilled to invite you to my upcoming free webinar, The Breakthrough Moment. In this transformative session, I'll guide you through the process of releasing the resistance that's been keeping you stuck so you can finally align with the success and abundance that's been just out of reach. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start making real progress, this is your moment. Don't miss out. Head over to authorrevolution.org/breakthrough now to reserve your spot. Let's make this your breakthrough year.
Yeah. Well, that's I think nourishing human intelligence. So
Yeah.
I always say there's nothing artificial here. And the four sort of realms of human intelligence that I focus on are spiritual, and I don't mean religious. I mean, what is the meaning, purpose, and of your existence? And you can go religious if you want, whatever, open space. Physical is the first one because if our physical bodies are stressed, tense, etc., how can we open up authentically and receive the like power of our intuition and the knowing and the confidence and emotional and intellectual. So what do you have to offer expertise wise? What do you know already, and how can we harness that knowledge? But again, first, and emotions should be moving. So I kind of do my own little, without telling my clients, I sort of, they know that these of these four elements, I call them, pillars, whatever you want to call them, of human intelligence. I didn't make this up or anything, but I'll invite them to, if I sense that they're stressed, I'll say your physical intelligence needs some attention. You do not want stress in your book. So when you're stressed, if we have a session as an example, I'll invite you to either come on, we can do some breathing, we can do some a modality to get you settled in and then engage, or let's wait a week. And then what do you think you can do to take care of that this week? Obviously for me, sleep is number one. And so I'll just, ask, how are you sleeping? Things like that. How are you feeling today? What's your stress level, if you were to say from 1 to 10, so that I understand like on what level to also engage them in going deep. Maybe
Sure.
then we have more of a conversation about, the business of their book or something. So it's really personalized, and it depends on the person, and it depends on their history with, if they love to meditate, I'm like, great, let's do some of that, and I offer them tools and things. But to dig in and get them to be vulnerable and authentic, those four areas have to be constantly sort of recognized and fine-tuned. Does that clarify for you, or was that
It
too
does, but for my audience, what are the four areas? So you said physical,
oh,
I'm guessing spiritual.
physical, spiritual,
Yep.
emotional, and intellectual?
Okay, that's what I was
And
thinking. Right.
and there are like a ton. If you Google like human intelligence, right,
Yep.
you can find so many forms, but those keep it very simple, and I think are very key in the process.
Do you ever find that it's hard to get authors to be like really raw or share that deeper stuff intentionally? Or when they've been working with you, when they start to let go of some of the, like you just said, the stress or the overwhelmment, I guess sometimes, do they eventually get past that? Like they must, but like,
Yeah,
is it typically hard at first?
not really. I'm pretty transparent and honest right away before anybody works with me. I
Yeah.
set up, kind of the boundaries of the relationship, and that this is collaborative, it's not it's a partnership, and I'm going to be your partner and you can lean on me. And even if, I mean, I've written some books from, academics, right, that are, it takes incredible amount of research, and they
Hmm.
are brilliant people, and they come wanting to share what it is they do, their
Okay.
expertise.
Yeah.
And I tell them we have to uncover some other layers, whether it's through other people's stories that you've heard or your own stories or something, to get the reader engaged in the process. And even with that, I mean, it's so cool to see people who are so brainy tell me a story about, a patient or a student or something, and see their eyes kind of glaze over because they feel something. And I'm like, yes, yes, that's
Yeah.
magic. You got to make people feel something. And if you don't feel anything, they're not going to feel anything. And you can be
Yeah.
so smart, but if the book doesn't have any emotion in it, it's not gonna stand the test of time. So I don't find it to be hard, strangely. I guess, yeah. People tell me feel really
Yeah.
comfortable with me, I guess. So I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to do with, I've heard this anyways, like people with higher vibration, for whatever reason, others are just so aware of that in a subconscious level that they do. Like you're standing at the grocery store and people are telling you their life story and you're like, okay, like what's happening here? But all right, go with it and it's fine. But yeah, it's like there is something about that. Like I was sitting outside once in my yard and I was just writing. I can't remember which book it was, probably my third or fourth book at the time. And I was sitting on my picnic table and we had just moved into this house and one of my neighbors across the street, she was like in her 90s at the time. She used to walk the block all the time. She had to come over and sit down next to me on the stool and be like, you know what? I don't know what it is about you. Every time you're out here, I keep feeling like I have to come talk to you. And we sat in the backyard talking for like 3 hours, about her life or whatever. And it's like, it's very interesting how people just sense that. They really do. There's like this magnetism that happens. Yeah,
So
it's so
great.
cool.
Yeah, I love that as an example because also for authors or the work, that I do with them, anything, even just our own well-being, like just getting out and engaging with people. And that
Mm,
doesn't, sometimes I get it, socialization can be overwhelming and we all get fatigued, and especially depending on, your level of introversion or extroversion.
right.
But when you engage with the world, it's like the humor and the emotion and like all of these things come through. And so I think that it's really important to get out into the world and actually explore some alternative ways in doing so.
Mm,
One of the people I so brilliant to me is David Sedaris. Do you
okay.
ever read David Sedaris?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's so funny and the most he even takes like the most painful parts of his life, of his family, and just these nuances, like cleaning up garbage on the side of the highway, with his I think he's his husband. He just like, and it just makes you crack up and also tear up, and it's because he's engaging in these things in life, like the woman coming on your porch.
Mm,
You don't know what she's going to say or share with you, or what you might
yeah.
learn, or how you might laugh, or something quirky or whatever that shows up in your life.
Right.
So it's like, just pay attention and see,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's all great material to share stories and connect, even if it's not in a book or formally.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you never know. Like, and sometimes it's like you'll be having a conversation with a friend. I've done this multiple times where that person is so different from who you are that their stories that they share inspire ideas of what you could create for a character in a fiction novel or whatever. This has happened to me where one of my characters has literally I've like lifted and like just transposed and like almost the exact same scenario because
Yeah.
of some of the crazy things friends have done. And then, that now they become immortalized as one of my characters in a book or whatever. But it's not anything that I would have done myself or anything I would have even maybe thought of because it's just so out there, you know? And it just
Yes.
goes to show every person has such a different perspective and way to look at the world and sometimes behave in the world that you just you have to kind of go, wow, okay, that was very authentic and you can tell because I would never have done that.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you pay attention closely, like kind of like mindful conversations, and you look at like little things, right? Like someone's eyebrows are combed up and sticking this way, or their
Yeah.
glasses are crooked, or their collar is popped, or whatever it is. It's like those are details that create, nuances and more layers as well, and more character, I guess,
Yeah.
to just notice the unique distinction of everyone
Yeah.
is something really incredible to me, like how
Me
we're all
too.
so different. Yeah.
Absolutely. I grew up with a brother who had a brain tumor. And so for me,
Mm.
very early on, seeing how different people could have different perspectives of the same situation. Like he and I were so vastly different because of that tumor that like I could look at something and be absolutely frustrated with it, and he would just laugh at it because to him, what was going on was actually funny, or whatever. And I'm just like, that's so wild. Like, even as a kid, I'm like, what? How can you be so chill about this? Or, whatever it was, and it's from that point forward, it was very much I loved the concept of how different perceptions can all stare at the same thing. And it's like, you're going to get all of them are different perceptions of the same thing. It's so cool.
Yeah, and are you saying that you believe that his perspective was different because he had a brain tumor, and so
All of the things like he would
yeah.
have had a different like different perspective anyway, but just the way that like he could look at anything for the most part and just be completely like in this joyful happy
Hmm.
state, you know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very very him to be in that place. And for me, like as a teenager at that point or whatever, I would have been like, oh, like really? Whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting
Mhm.
though. But his difference, because it was such a stark difference between when he went like before he had his surgeries and then after his surgeries, it definitely altered the way he presented himself or his personality. So because of that too, it was like such a interesting thing to witness as a kid. That perception then became something that was really fascinating to me. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
So
and to consider the lens that other people are maybe looking through is
yeah.
so good for us, because yeah, someone like your brother, like he's seeing the world through these eyes of just like gratitude for, you
Yep.
know, being alive, perhaps, for just, yeah. And
Yeah.
it can give us a lot of it can actually help change our behavior, help change the world, in fact, in my opinion. And sometimes when
Yeah.
I'm with people and they're telling me a story about, something bad that happened as an example, right?
Mm.
Maybe they're in they're just talking to me, and while maybe they came out of it better than before, maybe they're venting a little bit in a session, and like this person did this or that. So sometimes I'll say, and sometimes I'll joke and be like, look, I'm not asking you this to rub you the wrong way, but do you think this person could have been thinking this or that? Or what do you think they could have been thinking? Like, why do
Yeah.
you think that, what are the possibilities of why they could have behaved or said that thing or whatever they did, instead of they did that because I know, right? Do
Hmm.
we like,
Yeah.
let's explore the possible, perspectives. And then, I mean, if we're able to know and actually sit down with someone, then, I mean, then we know.
Yeah.
But
But
when
I think
we're
there's also
left
a
with
way to be
those,
able to have more empathy when you do sit down because
yeah,
there probably is a nuance there that you were not even considering. Like my husband and I, when we're driving, if we live in this tiny little town in central Minnesota, and in the summertime, all the tourists come up and they have no idea how to read speed limit signs at all. I swear to God. And so then you're sitting there going, come on. And then we both have this thing where it's like, if you're getting frustrated, it's okay. So what if this is a grandma who's 90 and who is confused and doesn't know where she's going? Or what
yeah,
if it's a 16-year-old kid who just learned how to drive and he's scared to death? Like, it's like, okay, I can back off of being frustrated a little bit, I guess. Okay, just drive behind them and like do the thing. You
for
know? Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
It's so
Coming
interesting.
from a compassionate place once and then maybe it's not a grandma, or maybe it's not a teenager,
It
maybe it's a
probably
jerk,
isn't.
but
Right? It could
but
just
even
be
if it's a
some guy who's
jerk,
oblivious. It's fine. He's in his
well,
own little world.
it's better for us that we don't get upset, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because otherwise you're just storing it in your own system, your own energy, and it's like, why?
Like waste. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what good is that going to do other than maybe you could tell a good story about it at some point? I don't know.
For sure.
Oh, goodness. Well, we're obviously living in an age of AI and technology kind of impacting the way that authors are writing or at least how they're planning. I teach it. I teach authors how to use like ChatGPT to be able to plan a series or to help them get out of their own head because I think sometimes that we really get stuck in what we think we all already know, and then our creativity gets blocked. And so using it as a springboard for creativity can be useful. But so many authors are very concerned about losing their authentic voice. Do you have any thoughts on AI or the digital trends that are happening right now and how authors can keep and maintain their authenticity? Hey there, authors. Are you ready for a unique writing challenge? I'd love for you to enter our Hits Different Short Story Awards for a chance to win first, second, or third place prizes. But here's the twist. You've gotta meditate to get your short story idea before you write it. Once you've received your hit, feel free to create your masterpiece. Head over to authorrevolution.org/hits different to learn more and sign up. Unleash your creativity and let your story hit different.
Yeah, I think, we have to look at these things like these are inevitable advancements in technology that are happening, and like what you're doing. Is there a positive way that I can use this? Is there something that I can utilize from this to maybe leverage my time or my energy, or, if I'm stuck, get some ideas. So, but I think it's really important to disengage from technology for concerted efforts of, creativity, to harness creativity, to not become attached and reliant on that to write your book or tell your story. Because I don't know about you, but I've definitely tested AI, and there's really no soul in AI. So it might, be able to give you 3 points of, I don't know, some kind of information, right? But it doesn't give you the story. It doesn't give you the essence of yourself. The only way we can do that is to detach from all of the overwhelm, tune in to ourselves, maybe have a partner or someone or writing group, whatever it is that you need to support you in expression, and start to experiment. And I mean, I also tell authors comparison is the thief of joy. And that's is that Roosevelt? I think it's Teddy Roosevelt. Oh
I
gosh.
cannot remember on that one.
I know this
I've heard it
like
before.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, I say it all the time, but I'm having a little bit of a brain blip. So, but that if they're looking at what everybody else is writing and doing in a comparison type of way, it's going to prevent them from finding their voice and encouraging them to like step away from the computer, stop plugging stuff into Chat GPT, and plug in to your life.
Mm.
And in your life, like you were talking about, in the moment where the woman sits down on the porch with you is potentially the moment where you come up with that realization, or you take care of your sleep hygiene and you wake up and you have the answer. We've all had those moments, right? Or you have
Mm-hmm.
the idea that's coming to fruition and you suddenly feel this rush of like, yes, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to say. If we
Yeah.
rely too much and get too distracted, it's just going to drain our creative, abilities. And everybody is creative.
Oh,
It is a
yeah.
whole process. And so many people are like, oh, you're creative, so you can do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's stop this.
We all are here to be
It's
creative.
for
Yeah.
all of us. And yeah, so I would say don't be afraid of it and act on fear and start putting your energy into battling AI. Focus on, I put powered or empowered by human intelligence on a lot of my posts on LinkedIn as an example, because I'm pro human intelligence. I'm not anti. I'm not wasting my time and energy on these negative things that are fear-based, scaring
Yeah.
us to like, we're not going to exist anymore. You know,
Right.
make
That is
friends
quite
with
the
it.
it,
Yeah.
it's so funny how people have that tendency to spiral out when something new comes in and you're just not quite sure. I mean, we did the same thing with ebooks. We did the same thing when the
Yeah,
printing press
right.
came about. It's like all sorts of things started. It's like we kind of go through these cycles and we haven't quite learned that eventually it will find its equilibrium. And we're still going to have to tap into our own creativity. I think even authors personally who use ChatGPT, if they want to use it effectively, they have to know their story already. Because if they don't know their story and they're just relying on chat to come up with some sort of brilliance for them, it's going to be all over the place because there's not enough. The only way that chat can really work for a creator is when there are parameters and when the prompts are put in place in a way that it understands what you're actually trying to get at. You know what I mean? And in
Yeah.
order for that to happen, you have to understand your story. You have to understand where you're going with it, or the tone you're trying to incorporate, or the surprises you're kind of liking. Like when we're teaching like how to create your series plan and your outline for your 4 books, whatever it is, we talk a lot about like how you can prompt about, what way can I brainstorm with chat to be able to come up with ideas. And it's not necessarily to take the ideas that chat gives you, but it's to look at them and go, okay, I kind of like elements of this and elements of this. And you're actually using your own creativity to like forcing it almost into a creative box in a sense, because
Yeah.
creativity likes having boundaries. And then you break out of those boundaries slightly. It's
Mhm.
fun to play around with. And there are definitely people who are going all in with chat and letting it do its own thing. And I think you're right. There's a lack of a soul there because they themselves don't even know what they're trying to get at. They don't know what they're
Yeah.
trying to bring into the world, or what is the whole point of this story in the first place. They're probably just doing it trying to earn money very quickly. And sometimes I think they'll be surprised that that's not going to be very efficient.
Yeah, and it's probably not going to be as fulfilling as you might think as
Right?
well. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, it's like the way that you're describing the use of Chat GPT is almost like as if you're having a conversation with someone. And so if it's like a brainstorming session or something,
Yeah.
so it's like use it for a brainstorming session is I I've done that when I've been kind of like, gosh, I don't know, I'm on the cusp of something and kind of brainstorm through it. And like you said, it's like might not actually directly give you something, but it
Mm.
might ping, something in your brain, just like when you're having a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
Well, different because I think
Mm.
conversations with people are clearly different, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that's a interesting way to approach it and effective. And just remembering, like, you know, I mean, anyway, people come to me not for turn and burn work
Mm.
because I can't do it. I won't do it.
Yeah.
I'll do swift books. I say swift and I say in due time because every author and every book has its time.
Yeah.
Maybe we get that done in 90 days. I will not do sooner than that. And even that, I'm like, let's let that breathe though, because
Mm.
you may have something in your life that you need to process during the process. And then we want to let that happen and come to life and take the time to honor the book and then the
I love that.
experience that you have in authorship. And yeah, but I get this that this world wants like immediate satisfaction.
It's so weird. Like in this, especially in the fiction indie author industry, like there's this need or this drive to keep publishing as quickly as possible by a lot of authors. And it kind of started, in the beginning, when you look at indie authorship, like Amanda Hawking kind of set the trend for that. And then there are actually other groups that have perpetuated that throughout the years. But we're kind of coming full circle to the point where people are like, yes, but you have to, if you're going to be in this, you have to do it sustainably. You have to create your own style. You have to know what's effective for you, what's feeling good to you. And so it's like, I think you're right on the right spot, helping authors to remember that this is a process and it doesn't require a certain time frame. It requires like you kind of tapping into yourself and your own intuition on when is this story, when is this nonfiction book, when is this memoir, whatever it is, supposed to wrap up? Is it coming out in the way that it's meant to? Because sometimes there are those layers to things that you're trying to force and you're butting up against. I personally I have done that where it's like I'm trying to get this chapter in and I'm like I know there's something I'm missing, but I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. And you're like so irritated. And then you have a kid who's like, "Mom, can we go watch Owl House?" And it's like, why? But I tried to do this thing. And then
Oh
finally you're
yeah.
like, obviously I can't get this done. So fine, you'll go watch Owl House. And then in the middle of watching it, you'll get an idea. And it's like, aha, that's what it was. That like
Yeah.
all I had to do is like disengage, watch a show with my kids, spend some time, and now here it is. Okay. It can be easy. I forgot.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
energy game.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
And
Yeah.
interruptions though are really challenging. It's like, we all have people and animals and, uh things that come up.
Yeah.
And when you're in the mode of writing, it's definitely like interruptions are like, I'm on a roll. But there is oh my gosh, I'm gonna do this again and forget who says this. It might have been Ernest Hemingway, with the idea that if you leave a piece of writing at the point where you're so excited to come back, that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
then you're like, I want to get back to it. It's like that book that you're reading that is so engaging you can't put it down, or the movie that, you can't stop watching.
Yep.
So it's actually a healthy thing. However, yeah, managing the interruptions can be a big challenge, especially when it's like, hey, mom, will you pay attention to me? Or
Yeah.
hey, you have to go to the bathroom, and the dog can't bring itself out to the bathroom, whatever it might be. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's cool that you just said that because it sounds like, you know, you, what you're saying is also like you can use those interruptions and say, all right, it's just springboarding me in another direction. And then I have
Hmm.
another idea instead of like, you interrupted my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes it's like that interruption is actually, in my opinion, it's like the universe going, okay, you're asking for this thing to come. Let me give it to you in an easier way. So we're going to
Yeah.
just let you have this other thing, interrupt the momentum, I guess, of what you're already doing so that you can have it sooner. You're asking for it sooner, but
Mhm.
the way you're doing it right now is not going to give it to you. So here you go. And then you have that choice, that decision to make between do I stay here and continue to fight it, or do I just go, okay, let's go watch the show or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, go outside and go for a walk or whatever.
Mhm.
And sometimes it really is like that moment of letting go, it allows in the things that you're asking for, but you have to be aware enough to go, oh, I need to let this go and not
Yeah.
keep fighting against it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so with your focus on impact-driven narrative work, how do you see the role of storytelling evolving in the next few years? Like, especially with these interactions with AI, but like, do you see it changing and evolving over the next few years?
I think more than ever, I've never, unless it's like that, once you see an orange car, you see the orange car everywhere kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe that's it, but it seems to me that it's so interesting because I would talk about storytelling when I was, working on my own health and wellness and rewriting my story and didn't feel like anybody was talking about it then. And
Interesting.
now it's like everywhere I turn, whether it's even, branding consultants or marketing consultants or everyone uses storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. So for me, in the work that I do outside of just with authors, but storytelling for healing, I do wraparound storytelling frameworks for retreats and different healing experiences that people go through so that they can have a time capsule in a smaller form book of their experience and remember that transformative period of growth. And I think that's where I see the conversation going with a lot of people, whether it's podcasts I'm listening to from, various thought leaders or articles on LinkedIn. And there's just a lot of conversation about the depths of which we tell our stories
Mhm.
and the kind of unification of people by doing so and creating that connection and understanding. And so I hope that we go back to because this is so ancient. It's like the first way that people were able to understand each other and understand the world around them that created a connection. And I think that kind of got lost and everyone's been kind of lost. And I sense that we're really
Yeah.
catapulting forward even though it doesn't feel like that to a lot of people. I really feel like we are in a very cool age of understanding and acknowledgement of like emotions and lived experiences and that did not exist. I'm 44. When I was in high school, like nobody talked about sharing your emotions or your stories. And now there's all these beautiful groups for kids. And, we need more. We need more, and we need it to be more accessible, so that people who, might not have the money to spend on a retreat or whatever have the opportunity. And those are the stories we need to hear the most, probably, are people who didn't have, what some of us maybe had. So yeah, I see the future really bright, and I see this going into places I can't even imagine, to be honest, and creating a lot of change in the world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen a lot of it as well. I think there's probably a little bit of the perception bias, which is a good thing, because the more we want to see we're looking for the evidence of the things that we're wanting. Well, and sometimes the evidence of what we're not wanting based off of the way that our perception is. But like when we do start looking for certain aspects of it, that perception bias does show you more of the orange card, or it shows you more of like pregnant ladies because you're pregnant, or it shows you, whatever it is. But then it helps us to, I don't know, for some of us, helps us to know that we are on the right track. Like we are doing the right things. We're kind of moving in the right direction. And I agree that like while in some ways it looks like everything is, going to hell in a handbasket, or it's a big dumpster fire. Like there are other aspects of it, like where if you're looking, you're seeing this level of people rising up, you're seeing the conversation shifting. And it's always been very interesting to me because like, as I brought more people like yourself onto this podcast, I'm kind of leaning more into my intuition on who I bring on. And yet there's this common thread of like all of us being very spiritual, even if they didn't say anything about like they're coming in here to talk about AI, for instance, or whatever. And then all of a sudden we're talking about how AI can help you get more mindful. Like what? Or, like all of a sudden it's like everybody's in this place where we're all kind of coming together to heal, to understand where we're at, to use our emotions in a way that's going to elevate us to new levels. And it's so neat that it's things like what you're doing. It isn't something that a lot of people are talking about or doing yet that I've seen, but yet it still ties into everything that I've been teaching and everything that people I've been talking to are doing. And it's like just another wonderful layer to what we as human beings are doing and how we can transcend. It's so cool.
It is so cool. It's
Right?
like the coolest. Yes, I like the other day I received a couple of, I don't at one point in my life I was like I felt like I needed validation of like people's happiness to feel like I was successful or something. And I don't need that anymore. I can just very much see like, okay, is it going well? Is it, are they growing? Are they changing? Do they feel happy? And I'll ask them. But then some days you get pinged with just this like, oh, like overwhelming sense of like knowing that you're on purpose, like
Mhm.
you're on target.
Yeah.
And the other day it was just like a couple of messages like, thank you so much for, I wouldn't have said what I wanted to say. I wouldn't have put this out there if I hadn't had, this experience. And I just think that I want everyone to experience what it feels like to say it, and to not have to actually have to craft it perfectly at all, and say it the way you would say it, very casually, in a way that feels like you need to get it out. And then from there, you start to really dig in and learn how you really want to say it if it's different. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm always going off on little tangents here,
I love
but
that
it's
though.
really like love that. And so
Yep.
like my next question is like how is my purpose? How is this work going to expand? And I don't know. I just asked myself, I've been asking myself that question these past days, actually. And then the answers are sort of coming through in various forms. I'm like, maybe it's that, maybe it's that. But I think, yeah, I'm really supportive of other people doing this work as well in different ways. So even therapists or people that aren't authors or writers, um,
Right.
they're doing work with how people talk to themselves and everything. So anyway, yeah.
Well, Stephanie, where can my audience go to find out more about you and all that you do? Like where can they go?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website. So it's the Wild Larynx. Now that means the throat, the voice box. And but it's spelled because some people are like, what is that? And how do you spell it? Larynx, thewildlarynx.com. Or I'm on Instagram, and then you can connect with the Wild Larynx on Instagram as well as Stephanie Lynn Fee, Fee. It's a really boring handle, but I mean, it is what it is. So that's where you can connect with me. And
why isn't it the Wild Larynx?
Well, there is a Wild Larynx Instagram account. So it kind of links up with my own.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't mastered all the avenues of social media, but I do what I can when I can, and otherwise I'm more focused on the day-to-day stuff. But yes, thewildlarynx.com and the Wild Larynx Instagram, and I'm Stephanie Lynn Fee.
Wonderful. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise and your stories today. I know my audience is going to love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me, and thank you for the conversation and the great questions. And yeah, I hope we keep in touch.
Wow, what an incredible conversation with Stephanie. I hope you found as much value in it as I did. A huge thank you to Stephanie for sharing her wisdom and insights with us today. If you want to dive deeper, the full transcript of our chat, along with the links to Stephanie's website and Instagram, will be available over at authorrevolution.org/250. And before I go, I've got one more exciting thing to share. If you're listening to this before August 31st, 2024, there's still time to sign up for my free webinar, The Breakthrough Moment. It's happening, obviously, August 31st, and it's at 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. The link to sign up is in the show notes, or head over to authorrevolution.org/breakthrough. Thank you again so much for being a part of this journey with me, and here's to many more episodes to come. Go forth and start your author revolution.